That's what I lost when my HOA sent in a bulldozer and demolished the retaining wall of stone I hand-built over 4 months. They deemed it a safety hazard and leveled it in 2 hours. Something they didn't share with anyone? Someone had bribed the president of the HOA to clear that exact land for a private road development. And when the hillside collapsed into my neighbor's garage, blamed me. My name is David Miller, and I'm telling the whole story here, the corruption, the cover-up, the collapse, because it didn't just destroy a wall. It exposed everything. You're watching QA stories, and this one might hit too close to home. When I bought my home in Willowbrook, it felt like paradise. The sloped backyard led up to a beautiful wooded hillside, and every time it rained, runoff would erode more of the soil. I've been a stone wall craftsman for over 20 years, learned from my grandfather, an Irish immigrant who built with old-world, gravity-fit methods. So I did what I was best at. Weekends and nights, I collected stones from the nearby quarries. I shaped, stacked, aligned. No mortar. Precision, weight, and intuition. I worked with the natural curve of the slope, setting each rock not just for stability, but for harmony of form. That wall was more than utilitarian. It was legacy. I had just laid the final capstone when she came. Mrs. Evelyn Reed materialized on my property line like a thundercloud with a clipboard. Lipstick too red, smile too rigid, voice too sugary to believe. HOA president. Red tape and high heels. Mr. Miller, she said, her voice crisp. We have an issue with your property. Turns out the issue was my mailbox. A brown wooden post with a vintage metal box that fit in with the rustic appearance of my home. Apparently, it wasn't on the HOA's approved color palette. I chuckled. She didn't. She presented me with a $150 fine notice. All mailboxes have to be forest green, colonial blue, or antique white. No exceptions. But that wasn't the actual problem. Her gaze drifted to the wall. We're reviewing all unapproved structures, she said, taking photos. The architectural committee needs to evaluate if your structure meets safety standards. That sinking feeling in my stomach wasn't paranoia. It was prophecy. A few days later, my neighbor Samuel Rodriguez wandered over. You hear about that new Hillrest Properties development? He asked. They need road access. Word is, they're buying up land wherever they can. Next appeared the yellow notice, warning, unsafe structure. Must be removed within 30 days. Attached? A letter from Safe Structure Consulting. Sounded real until I searched for them. No website. No license. No office. Phony. Samuel leaned close. They did this to the Hendersons. Told them their fence was unsafe. Now Hillrest owns their property. That's when it fell into place. My wall wasn't unsafe. It was inconvenient. I combated it. I attended the HOA emergency session loaded with smug faces and choreographed PowerPoint presentations. Evelyn labeled my wall a death trap, described it as collapsing at any given second. I rose up, flipped the fabricated report over my head. Who is the author of this? Produced their engineering license. Silence. Something shifted. People began to whisper. Second-guessing. Questions. And then backing. Mrs. Henderson told her own tale. Photographs. Fines. The same bogus company. The same bulldozer. The same deceit. And then the day that it all began to unravel. Literally. I returned from work and noticed the equipment on my land. Within 2 hours, they destroyed 4 months of work and released a deluge of unstable hillside. That evening it rained and the mudslide engulfed Samuel's garage. The wall had kept it at bay. Now there was nothing. And the HOA? They accused me. We didn't let them get away with it. Charlotte Kim, one of the former board members, quietly turned over files, meeting minutes, questionable contracts, and one USB drive loaded with incriminating evidence. Evelyn's emails. Timeline documents. Hillrest Properties financial payments. Then Samuel spoke out at the next meeting. How many houses have to flood before we stop labeling corruption community improvement? The HOA Facebook page went crazy. Homeowners shared their own nightmare experiences. Several families who'd been cited for spurious violations posted pictures of survey flags planted soon after. All of their properties were directly in line with the proposed Hillrest Road. It wasn't incompetence. It was a plan. Public outcry grew. The local media became involved. Footage of the fallen hillside was broadcast along with a bio of Safe Structure Consulting. It turned out that the so-called engineer was a former golf cart mechanic and had no idea that his name was being used. Evelyn became defensive. She made press statements accusing me of falsifying the evidence. Had a grudge, said Arthur, a former board member and whistleblower. Accused Charlotte of being mentally unstable and manipulated by dangerous people. That word dangerous people went viral overnight. And perhaps I was dangerous now, because I had nothing to lose anymore. We had a public hearing, this time at the community center. More than 200 individuals came. Press, lawyers, neighbors who hadn't been to an HOA meeting in years. I was there with the evidence, permits, footage of the wall, drone photos of the demolition, bank statements, and a spreadsheet Evelyn had titled Obstruction Properties Phase 1. Arthur grabbed the mic calmly furious. He spelled it all out. Maps, emails, code infractions, HOA bylaw abuse. Then there was Charlotte, tears in her eyes, shaking voice. Then Evelyn got up. She attempted to address. But this time, no one gave her the mic. The vote came quickly. 47 of 52 residents voted to expel Evelyn Reed immediately and forever disallow her from HOA participation. Hillrest's contracts were terminated. The HOA board was reorganized. Charlotte, Samuel, Mrs. Henderson, they all campaigned and succeeded. Transparency became law. Every demolition, every fine, every project now required a community-wide vote. The county investigation led to a harsh judgment. The court ruled $45,000 to me for damages and destruction, $15,000 to Samuel for cleanup of the garage, $25,000 fine to Evelyn Reed herself, $200,000 fine to Hillrest Properties, 10-year prohibition on Evelyn from all HOA service statewide. But the greatest victory? We rebuilt the wall, this time with proper permits. A licensed structural engineer, drainage pipes, reinforced terraces. And not just me. Arthur carried the stones. Samuel laid the foundation. Even Mrs. Henderson assisted in planting ferns at the base. No bulldozers this time. Only cameras. Only community. The last shot in the viral documentary was the rebuilt wall. Neighbors standing together, tools in hand, behind a sign that said, "This wall was rebuilt by the people Evelyn tried to erase." And then, neighbors I didn't even know were knocking on my door. They said our deck was unsafe too. They measured our fence last week. The Williams family came back from 2 towns down, evicted after a sweep of citations. Mrs. Henderson presented vintage pictures of her fence. The survey flags that appeared following demolition. Each property lay in the way of Hillrest. This was not mismanagement. It was corporate eviction by HOA puppetry. And once we reported that, the whole region awoke. Legislators stepped in. Housing advocates spread the word. Reforms were proposed statewide. I didn't only reclaim my wall. We reclaimed our voice, our dignity, our rights. Some walls are constructed to be barriers to exclude. But this wall is to unite people. And Evelyn Reed? She remains under investigation, attempting to sell her property. But nobody's taking the bait. Because when a community rebuilds, stone by stone, truth by truth, the past is powerless. Only the future is. If this resonated, pass it on. Talk to the people who live next door. Ask questions. Request transparency. HOA abuse doesn't end until someone gets up and does something. And sometimes, that someone is you.